I'm trying to think of most unlikable RINOs in Congress right now. And up there pretty high on the list is Dan Crenshaw. What a disappointment that man has turned out to be to the state of Texas. Not as much of a disappointment as John Cornyn. I just would like to set the record straight. But a pretty big disappointment in Dan Crenshaw here from the state of Texas. And yesterday evening, this story went bonkers crazy over on X that there was a reporter of GB News, Great Britain News, Stephen Edgington, and he was interviewing Dan Crenshaw, and he was asking several different questions, which I want to get into one of them, which is, why are you such a neocon? But he tweeted out this post of the interview, and he said, after our interview, I asked Dan Crenshaw if he had ever met Tucker Carlson, who they referenced in the video. He said that Dan Crenshaw said, I would kill him if I saw him. I laughed it off. He said, no, seriously, I would kill him. Watch my interview below where I asked if he is a neocon. Now, of course, he was asked about all of the aid that Dan Crenshaw was happy to send over to Ukraine. I mean, that's your money that you worked hard for, that you then have to sign away to the federal government, and they ship it off to Ukraine in some cute little money laundering scheme. But this is what Dan Crenshaw had to say about that.
Just coming back to this $100 billion to Ukraine, I know that people like Tucker Carlson will make the argument that there's a real opportunity cost there. You know, we could have spent that money on the border or fixing, issues in America. Yeah. What do you make of that argument that all this money could have been spent to help Americans and not Ukrainians?
Well, you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. We spend 75-80% of our budget on a welfare state in America, on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I would love to ask Tucker what he thinks that $100 billion should be spent on, and if he would vote for it as a conservative. Tucker doesn't know what he's talking about. Tucker likes to visit Moscow and talk about how great the grocery stores are. So I don't really take his advice very seriously.
We can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's just that our national debt is like $36 trillion. And let's see, I'm literally on the debt clock right now. Debt per taxpayer, $323,000 per taxpayer. That doesn't sound like walking and chewing gum at the same time. That sounds like something is very, very wrong. And so the idea that, well, we're going to spend the $100 billion anyway, so we could just ship it off to Ukraine. What's Tucker got to say about that? He's too busy being a Putin puppet. All the dumb talking points that you would expect. And so in regard to the tweet, well, he said he would kill Tucker Carlson. That's kind of a big deal. You had Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who asked Dan Crenshaw about it on X. Did you threaten to kill my friend Tucker Carlson? Now, Dan Crenshaw, in his, usual passive-aggressive way, responded, LOL, no. There's just one small problem with that. He may have thought, well, my mic was removed, so nobody picked it up. But his interviewer's mic was not removed and still hot. And he came in with receipts. Here is, of course, the moment Dan Crenshaw didn't realize was caught on camera. Watch.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot. If I ever meet him, he's the worst person.
If I ever meet him, I'll effing kill him. Now, this post was later deleted, obviously not before it was saved and reposted by multiple different people. So what I'd like to know, and I've inquired with this reporter, why was the post deleted? Did you decide to delete it? Did your company decide to delete it? Did Dan Crenshaw threaten you guys to delete it? I don't know. I'd like to find that out because he certainly was quick to post the receipts. But be that as it may, once this post was out there and Dan Crenshaw was exposed as a liar, the liar that he is, the disgusting human being that he is, Tucker Carlson responded to it. He said, why don't you come sit for an interview and we'll see how you do. I'll send you my address, Dan. And I have to imagine that Dan Crenshaw is not going to take him up on this. But I mean, listen, We can talk about Democrats all damn day. We can talk about how terrible they are. We can talk about how none of their policies are well thought out. We can talk about how detrimental they are to the country all day long. But we shouldn't be talking about that until we are willing to talk about how much we need to clean house. We need to clean house. And Dan Crenshaw is at the top of the damn list. Dan Crenshaw has betrayed this country to maximum levels. Dan Crenshaw has voted to send millions upon millions upon millions of your hard-earned dollars to a foreign country. Dan Crenshaw has no problem getting us involved in foreign problems. Dan Crenshaw, and this is what really gets me, is that you would expect that these people with military backgrounds, you would expect that these veterans who know what it's like to be in combat would really understand we don't want to send our young sons and daughters, in some cases, to go fight a war that they don't need to be fighting. We don't want to get the United States involved in something that could lead to our sons and daughters dying when we don't even have to get involved in the first place. And yet somehow we get these veterans that come out and do the exact opposite. And so you see Dan Crenshaw constantly betray the American people, constantly betray Texans who voted for him. And we just need to be willing to call this out. And if we can't get this right in Dan Crenshaw's next election, it's just like John Cornyn. I don't know what to say about the state of Texas and the people who keep electing him. I mean, Dan Crenshaw, who claims that he is not pro any sort of gun control, but he also says that he thinks that we should expand background checks for gun sales for those between the ages of 18 to 21. I mean, that's a little bit of a form of gun control, don't you think, Dan? So the list goes on of what he is okay with, what he has proposed. No problem, spending your hard-earned money during COVID, but shutting you down. So it's like, well, hold on. We're going to shut you down. We're not going to let you work. And then, but don't worry. We're going to take your tax money and we're going to pay you? We're going to give you a stipend of your own money that we're also preventing you from earning because we're shutting you down. Dan Crenshaw was fine with that too. So Dan Crenshaw, a betrayer of this country, wants to go sit in front of a UK reporter and say, I'll kill Tucker Carlson. This guy is one of the most embarrassing things to come out of Texas in quite a while. And I am telling you, whoever is within the sound of my voice, who knows someone who wants to primary him, who is primarying him, please contact me. I am all in with getting this garbage human being out of Congress because let's see if he takes Tucker Carlson up on that. Let's see. Spoiler alert, he won't because he's all talk. All right. Okay, I've got more to come. I cannot wait for you to hear from my next guest in regards to how serious the MAHA movement really is. If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.